Hi, this video is in response to Armchair Analysis. He made a video by the name of How SouthPark Kindly Exposed the Absurdity of a Religion. I'm making this video mainly because the leftist Nazis of YouTube won't allow me to make a post replying to the video and correcting several things that the video got wrong. I'm actually making a list of this when YouTube won't allow me to post. Totally respectful, normal posts, nothing inappropriate said at all. Currently have over 100 posts that have been deleted by YouTube's AI. Anyway, so here we go. Basically be saying everything I would have said. Alright, this video gets several things wrong, like I mentioned. Number one, the Book of Mormon does not teach that Native Americans only came from Lehi's group from Jerusalem. That's an anti-Mormon falsehood. It actually teaches the exact opposite. That there were people here already. In fact, it indicates several groups of people that were here before Lehi's group even came. A couple of them came from Jerusalem and others were already here. Further, nothing else explains the population levels of the Lamanites, the name stemming from Laman and Lemuel. Unless there were people here in the Americas already. That Laman and Lemuel simply joined and intermarried with those people. And of course, those people were darker. So that is actually part of why the Book of Mormon describes them as darker. Also, the darkness of their skin color was not, in fact, the curse. It was just a sign of the curse. The actual curse was a loss of the relationship with God and other things. So, of course, DNA proves what I just said. It indicates that most of the people are Asiatic. However, it does indicate that there's some DNA from other groups, including the same DNA that the Jews have, which would be correct if a small group of a family came to the Americas and there was already a larger population of people here. Obviously, their DNA is not going to be easily detectable. So it actually perfectly fits instead of disproving the church's claims. Let's see. So like I said, the actual curse was spiritual based. Had nothing to do with the skin color. The skin color was just the basis of Laman and Lemuel intermarrying with locals. Also, the Book of Mormon tells a story of toward the end where the Lamanites, aka the darker people, actually ended up being the heroes, chosen people. So, pretty bad racism if you make the supposed inferior people that you're trying to claim ends up being the heroes. Anyway, number 2, or 3 I should say. There was not, in fact, a priesthood ban on blacks. This is a big lie anti-Mormons have told, and even, unfortunately, many in the church don't even know it's a lie. The ban only applied to those of African lineage, including whites who had that lineage. Blacks of India, the highlands, parts of Central South America, etc., were all given the priesthood. The ban was entirely based on genealogy and patriarchal blessing, which determined your lineage. Had nothing to do with race. Also, I would like to note that for most of history with God's dealing with man, or at least the first half, or well, actually more than that, actually, only the Levites, the Levitical lineage, were allowed to have the priesthood, while all other lineages were banned. Was God racist, not allowing other lineages to have the priesthood? Same for Jesus. The gospel itself wasn't officially taken to the Gentiles, the non-Jew. It was given to the Jew only when Jesus was alive on the earth. This was the policy. It took Peter getting a revelation to finally take the gospel officially to the Gentiles, to non-Jews. So was Jesus racist? No. God does things for various reasons, and I would like to point out that racism pretty much ended in any sort of major way, at least towards blacks, at the same time that the priesthood ban was lifted. So, like I said, given that many blacks were given the priesthood, and how racism basically ended towards blacks, I think God probably had a reason for not giving the priesthood to most blacks. Also, the video mentions the church disavowing stuff. Actually, what the church disavowed was some of the theories, which were attempts to explain why the ban existed. So they disavowed some of those theories that members tried to come up with. However, none of those theories were ever policy or doctrine of the church. Some were based on doctrinal principles, but were not actually doctrine or policies. So that's also incorrect. The church has nothing to apologize for. I was part of several religions before I joined the church when I was young, and this was before the priesthood ban was lifted. And other than the Catholic Church, the LDS Church, the people in it were literally the least racist. I didn't even know the ban existed until they lifted it. That's how little racist they were. So none of it was based on racism. Also, the church never segregated congregations. So blacks were always had full fellowship in the church, equally as anyone else. In contrast to other churches, especially the evangelicals and Protestants, the ones who hate us the most of other religions. They were the most racist of history. And yet they now try to accuse us of being racist and things like that. Anyway, so, okay. 5. Joseph marriages were actually spiritual ordinances. They were not polygamy. Polygamy is when you're actually a wife living together in wifely and family duties. There is no evidence whatsoever that any of Joseph's sealings were actually polygamous sealings. Critics would sometimes call it spiritual wifery. even they admitted that there was an actual polygamy going on. It was spiritual based, not physical based. Polygamy actually started after he died, or at least more or less. Let's see. Joseph only lived with his only and single wife, Emma. He had none other. His sealings, aka marriages, were to all kinds of people. Old, married, few, slightly younger, etc. Even Emma was part of it. And she always denied that Joseph never practiced polygamy. I mean, she always denied the claim that he did, and he denied it as well. Number 6. A majority of the 11 official witnesses to the Book of Mormon actually left the church. Even though most of them did in fact come back, none ever denied their testimony of what they saw, either seeing the angel and the plates together in the case of the 3 witnesses, or the plates only in the case of the 8 witnesses. Anti-Mormons like to claim one of the witnesses, I think it was Harris, saying he only saw the angel, the plates with his spiritual eyes. Well, of course it was a type of vision, but there's more to that story that I think it is that he didn't even actually say that. Because of course when you see an angel of God, you're going to be transformed. So whatever the experience was, it did in fact happen, and he always claimed it did till his dying breath. He never denied, even though in one of the claimed instances that antis like to point out, they claim he tried to downplay that, but it's clear the other times he testified, he made clear what he saw, that it was real. And I think he was the one who even said that, as clear as I'm looking at you now, to one of the people asking. It happened. Anyway, also I think only 3 of the witnesses were actually related to Joseph, and 1 other was related by marriage. So it's not correct that they were all relatives, or mostly relatives. So another falsehood in the video. Number 7. The translation of the plates actually occurred by many methods. I think I counted like 7 or something, 6 or 7 at one point when I was fighting with anti-Mormons on one of the anti-Mormon forums out there once, including the key method was having nothing at all with them. Of course the plates were there, but he wasn't even looking at them. It just was pure revelation. From the history, it appears that him using the stone and hat mostly occurred at the beginning of the translation of the Book of Mormon. And given the other methods, it ended up appears not even to have been the primary method used. So the idea that LDS somehow don't know about this and whatever, the artistic renderings relaying an idea, not trying to be, anti-Mormons complaining about artistic renderings. However it occurred by revelation, period. That's what the church portrays. It's not like any of us who are into scholarship doesn't know about it. Nobody's hiding anything from us. Let's see. 8. There are now thousands of evidences for the restoration of the church from history, scholarship, and the various sciences, including hundreds of things Joseph could not have ever known. It's absolutely astounding. When I returned to the church in my early 20s after I left the church and was anti-religion and anti-Mormon briefly. When I came back and was restudying religion and the church, comparing the church scholarship with anti-Mormon scholarship, I also studied scholarship related to evidences for the gospel. Even back then, which was 30 years ago, the evidences were huge. So much so that anyone actually honest of heart, wanting to know the truth, would know the truth, that the church was true. But today, the evidences have exploded since then, 1,000 times. It's absolutely astounding. I remember a FAIR conference. FAIR is the Foundation for Apologetics, Information and Research. It's a scholarship site where you can actually go and learn the actual truth and facts about the church, in contrast to anti-Mormon claims. Absolutely debunk them well. But anyway, I remember years ago I went to a FAIR conference and one presenter presented this chart which showed a bunch of red and some green of things. They compared what scholarship knew back in the early days of when the church started and how anti-Mormons would criticize the church. There was a lot of red, just a little bit of green. So the green is showing things that they knew back then, related to the restoration in the Book of Mormon or whatever. And then he compared what scholarship knew today, and the chart was just full of green. All the things that ended up being proved to be true, that I think it's related to the Book of Mormon. Yeah, it's related to the Book of Mormon only. But somebody else did a new chart not long ago, and the whole chart of everything the Book of Mormon mentions, basically the entire chart is green now. So what was basically almost all red back in Joseph's time is now basically all green. Nearly all green. So the church is true. The LDS do not and never have discriminated against any minority. We love people, we love them. We do have standards, moral standards. But we treat everyone with dignity, no matter, whether they're gay, trans, or whatever else. Those are sins just like any other. We don't hate or marginalize anyone else with any other kind of sin. So it's just another leftist anti-Mormon lie. Let's see. The video also mentioned the 4,000, etc., corrections to the Book of Mormon since it was printed. Well, what the video doesn't tell you is that basically all of the corrections to the Book of Mormon are correcting printer errors, scribal errors, things like that, bringing the text back to its original and correct revelation and form. What scribal manuscripts we do have, I tried to bring it back to that. Joseph also made some corrections. Basically everything is legit. It's nothing, wasn't just, the church isn't just making up stuff. It's trying to give us the most correct form of the Book of Mormon, what was actually revealed. So that's another antimony lie. Okay, so in conclusion, it's pretty rich that claiming Latter-day Saints are ignorant and simple, believing stupid and clearly false stuff. Yet the people making these sort of claims are, for the most part, really don't actually know anything about the church. They just are giving the most simple and uninformed judgment, cursory judgment, and just believing what critics say about it instead of doing real study. It's the same thing leftists do to the right, how they lie about every word that comes out of their mouth, essentially, especially if it's about the right or an important issue. The left is lying, just outright lying. Of course, they'll be even lie about things they don't have to, like Biden, various lies about his education, civil rights activities, or even lying about his son. It's just crazy. So that's basically it. So correcting some of the incorrections whatever in that video that Armchair Analysis did. Again, making this video because